Hello and welcome to my channel. This is another video in my Easter 2018 card series. In this video I'm going to do these two cards. In part 2 I'm going to do these two cards. Please make sure that you see both part 1 and part 2 so that you can follow along with me. Consequently, this video is going to be a little bit longer than most because it's a more complicated design than I usually do. But stay with me and I hope that you will enjoy it. I also need some Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and I will list all of these colors in the comment section down below so you don't have to see them now. And I also need a Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. The stamps I'm going to be using today is My Kind of Peeps stamps with dies from Simon Says Stamps, Springtime Shapes die cuts from Simon Says Stamps, Easter Party with dies from Lawn Fawn, and the Happy Easter border die also from Lawn Fawn. I also have some generic dollar stamps. I also am going to need some finger daubers, so I have some of those also. All right, down the rabbit hole we go. The first step I want to do is to do the front of the card with the die inlay. So I want to be sure that I put this die cut at least 2 inches down to allow room for the little guy, the little rabbit guy. But I also need it to be very straight. So I'm using the lines on my grid map to help me line it up. And it's going to be tricky because I want to do both card cuts at the same time, so I'm going to need to be sure to keep them together so that they don't move, so that the die cut will be exactly the same on both. So I have some frog tape here, and I'm going to temporarily hold this die down in place, but make sure that you use a low adhesive tape because you don't want to inadvertently tear up your card front. So I had to also flip it over and add an extra sheet of paper because it's kind of thick in order to get it to come loose. Let me show you the purple one because it did better. So you just carefully pull the frog tape off, careful not to rip the card. Now I'm going to use my pokey tool and get this die cut out. This is really delicate, so you have to be really careful not to bend it all up. But it's worth it. It's really, really pretty. Now we have the different pieces for the front, and the yellow words go with the purple words go with the yellow. So let me move this out of the way temporarily, and now we're going to do some surgery on these two pieces. So I'm bringing in my paper trimmer, and I need to trim this to 1/2 an inch. And I also need one other 1/2 an inch. Did that make sense? I need 2 1/2 inch strips, and one of them has the pieces of the alphabet that has been cut out. Okay, don't throw this away. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the purple. Now it's starting to get a little bit complicated. I have made this card 6 times already, and each time I did this a different way, and this is the most recent example of how I'm doing this. If I would really be really appreciative if someone could make a suggestion for a way that is a little bit more logical than what I'm doing, but because I'm telling you, I tried it several ways and this is the best I could come up with. But it worked, that I can promise you, because I did get the card finished. So what I'm doing now is laying the die cut back in place in the negative space, and I'm holding it together to make sure everything fits nicely. And I'm taking some more frog tape, and I've been really careful to pull off as much of the adhesive as I can and still have it be sticky. And let's see, and I'm just going to tape right over the die cut. Don't let it move if you can avoid it. And I'm trying to use low tack because I don't want to tear up the front of the card. So I don't want to press too hard, but I want it to stay all together. All right. Now that that's done, I'm going to flip it over, and this part I'm going to lay it here and glue everything together right here. Okay? So I'm going to put one piece of tape on this side, and I'm only going to tape here and here on this side, because if I went all the way across, the tape would show up through the cutout, and I don't want that to happen. And in fact, I'm going to get my small tape runner and put a little bit more tape there and there. Okay? Now cover this up, keeping this edge straight. Okay, now this is going to hold the lower part in place on the front side. Don't worry about this and this sticking out. It won't be seen. Now I'm going to carefully remove this tape. Hopefully I didn't press too hard. Okay, I got it started. You pull the tape back on itself gently, because you don't want to tear your die cut. All right, hold that tape because I'm going to need it for the second one. I'm going really slow, and I know that's going to make the video longer, but I don't want to tear it at this point. Okay. Now the die cut is free. It's not adhered at all. So it just came right loose. So I found out I had a really jagged cut, but I'm going to fix that, not to worry. So the die cut, I'll double check and make sure it's still going to fit, and it will. So I'm going to get my multimedia mat and put the adhesive in little bits here and there. This is a needle point, and then put it in place. Okay, now it's in there. So this, I got a very crooked cut. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to have to fix this cut with my paper trimmer, and then I'll move on to the next step. Okay, deep sigh, I got that done. Now moving on. So now we need to close the card front. I'll do both at the same time. And I'll bring in my acetate pieces. Here's one, and that's the problem with acetate. It is devilishly hard to see it because it is invisible. Okay, so I'm going to carefully put one very thin line of adhesive on one side of the acetate, barely in it. And I'm going to take it and put it in place, lining up the bottom edge. And the adhesive is at the top. And I want to make sure that it's straight. And once I'm confident that I have it straight, close it down and press it. And now I have a window front. Okay? Now I'm going to tape this down also. This is what the second strip of purple was for. And line this up with the edge because you want everything to be straight. Have a little bit of adhesive there. I'll get that off with my finger. Okay. And now it's the front of one card done. Okay, I'm going to go and do this one. Now I need to make the backing for the card. So I need to measure how far over I did. I know how much it should be, but I need to measure just to be sure. So it's a little bit more than 2.5 on that one, and same thing on this one. So I have 2 of the white panels, and I'm going to cut them at 2.5. Okay, that's the wide piece, that's the small piece. Okay. Now, don't get these two mixed up. We need the smaller pieces. And now we're going to make some peeps. Now I'm going to work on the inside. So I'm going to take one of the panels, and I just about have eyeballed where I need to stamp. So I'm going to start this off at the lower part and bring in the outline of the peep and put it generally about the middle. And I need it to be up at least 1/4 inch from the edge to allow for this hem here. That trim area. Don't want to go up too far, but I need it to be up a little bit taller, and that looks to be just about the center. So transfer that to the door and stamp this with the Versafine. All right, one bunny outline. So now I'm going to slide it up to about the 1 inch mark, and let me eyeball it. That's about where I want it to be. And this will get the second peep. Okay. Now I need to bring it down a bit more. That's too much. Let's try at 5 1/4. It looks about right. Okay. Don't want this to move. And I'm just eyeballing this. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Okay. So that's that. I'm going to clean this little guy up. And now I already have the Easter eggs in place on the door here, and let me make sure that it still fits. Yes, it does. So 1 egg I'm going to ink up with the grape jelly, and the other I'm going to ink up with the dandelion. Okay, clean this up. You'd be really careful not to get a ghost image from that first one. And I almost did, but I caught that. I'm going to do that again for this one. Okay, now I need to put the inside for the little guys. So I'm going to move this to the top and bring in the solid part, which does the inside color. I'm just going to look right through and line it up. Transfer them to the door. Make sure they didn't move. Now, 3 of the bunnies are going to be purple and 3 are going to be yellow. Okay, now I'm also going to stamp the inside sentiment while I have this ready to go. I'm running out of room here. So I already have those stamps on the block ready to go, and I'll just stamp them. You're my kind of peeps. Without you, I'd go off the deep end. Okay, now let me clear this away and move to the next thing. Now we're going to move on to the watercoloring. I've taken the Versafine and I've stamped the little bunny guy onto the watercolor panels. And I'm just going to go and do some really easy watercoloring. This is mostly white, but if you leave it completely white, it won't look like you've done anything to it. So you should put a little bit of the very lightest gray that you can find when you're working with white. And it makes it look a little bit more shaded. It doesn't add too much color, just some shading. So I'm just going over very lightly, adding a little bit here and there. And I have my paper towel here. And I'll just blend it right out, and it just goes right away. You don't see the gray, but you do see some shading. And if you feel like you had too much gray on there, just take and wipe your paintbrush and then just pick the color up and just pull it off. And it'll get lighter as you do it. Okay, now do this guy. This is so fast, I won't even need to speed it up. Okay. Now take the pink and right in the center of the ear. And now I want to add him a little flesh color. So I'll start out with the flesh color and go all over his face lightly, not too much, because you don't want to oversaturate this because it's really kind of small. And now I'll go a little bit from the oatmeal on the left and the right and under his hat, not too much. And now bringing in the dark brown, which is, where is it? Here it is. Now be really careful with this because this is really dark and you don't want to go too heavy. Very lightly along the cap. And I'm going to start the blending from the lighter area and then slowly bring the dark down into it. Clean that. I got a little bit of brown on his little hat, so I'll have to pull that color off. Okay. Now I'm going to put a little bit of pink. Is this the pink? Yes, just a little bit on his little cheeks. And blend that out a little bit. Okay, he's all done. Move to the next step. Now I need to do the die cutting. I need 2 of the green, 2 of the orange, cut out these 2 guys, and I'll need 12 of these bunnies. So I'm going to do all this die cutting and I'll be right back. Now I have all my bunnies. I've pulled out 6 and I have 6 over here, and 6 of them need to be stamped. 3 pink, purple, and 3 yellow. And I'm going to use the negative space from my die cutting to help me line up these die cuts. So I'm going to take and put the negative space into the MISTI flush with the corner, make sure, and hold it down with one magnet. Now this is a tricky part, because if you get these two magnets to touch, you are in the soup. So carefully, I have the second magnet from my other Misty, and I'm holding it down so that it's really tight and it doesn't move. I'm bringing it a little bit closer together, but not too close. Now, I'm going to take the die cut and pop it right in place in the hole here. I'll use this one. And take the outline and just lay it right on top of the die cut. And I think that's lined up right. Transfer that to the door. And I'm just going to ink up all 6 of them. Yep, that's good. I'm going to need to get something to help me get that bad boy out of there. It's my X-Acto. Okay. Now I'm going to go through and do all 6. Now I'm going to do the other part. So where did that thing go? Here we go. The solid part. And I'll do the same steps again. Okay, that's all those peeps done. Now clear this away. Next step. Almost there. The next step is to put the bunnies on the front of the card. And in order to do that, you're going to use the inside to help you line it up. So this is, as you remember, this is 5.5 by 4.25, which is the exact dimension of half the card. And that's not going to work because it needs to be just a hair smaller in order to allow for the fold. Now the reason I didn't just cut it a little bit smaller, because I wanted to leave myself a little bit of wiggle room for the stamping, because I need the front of the card to allow the peep to be partially on this part and partially on that part. So depending on how I stamped it, I may need to move the inside up or down a little bit to make sure that I get that peep where I need it to be. So I now see that I have a little bit I can cut off at the bottom, and that's going to work, because if I had assumed to just cut off at the top, and then if I had not done this stamping close enough to the bottom, then I would need to cut it from the bottom also. So that's why I saved that trimming step until I did the actual stamping. Boy, I used a lot of words to explain something very simple. I'm sorry. Too long, didn't read. Trim a little bit off so it'll fit. Be right back. So now that I've trimmed it, I can tape it down permanently. And you want to line it up with the bottom of the card. And keep it even. Okay. There. Now that we have that, we're going to use the inside bunny showing out to help line up the outside bunny. So, whoops. Again, I'm going to bring my multimedia mat, put a little bit onto it. I don't know what all adhesive you would find to stick to this acetate, but the multimedia mat does work. If you can get it come out of the bottle, of course. Okay, just a little bit is all you need. And just line him up so he is covering the guy on the inside. Okay, and for the outside, you want that to be covered as well. So you will take one of the plain bunnies and just glue it to the inside. And line it up just like that. Okay, I'm going to go through and do the rest of the bunnies. Okay, now we need just need to put the last little bits of backing onto the card. So I needed to get another piece of white scrap, and I forgot that part. Okay, this needs to be 5.5, and it is by 1/2. That's 1. That's 2. All right. Now, I'm going to take the this piece and cover this side. Making sure that it is just under the purple, because you don't want this white to show to the outside of the card. So just under, by just a hair. Okay? And the same thing here. And if it doesn't quite fit, just take your trimmer and trim it. Or your scissors, either way you feel comfortable with. All right, well, let's see how I did. Pretty good, but I'm going to trim it on this side. So now I'm going to put the rest of this together. Okay, that's the first 2 cards. So this is the end of the part 1 video. Part 2, I will show how to make these 2 cards. It's the same layout, just different embellishments. Please stay tuned for part 2. Thank you for watching, everyone. Please subscribe to my channel. I'd like to thank you for your time and attention, and I appreciate all the positive comments that I'm getting. I'd also like to thank my brother David for the music, and I hope that you're enjoying it. See you in step 2.